Hello everyone. So today we'll discuss some of the topics related to agriculture. So we'll have a discussion on a topic related to minimum support price. Achha, we all know that MSP was recently announced by the government on 14 Kharif crops. So we know that government announces MSP before the sowing season, and the basic purpose is to protect the farmers from the market related risks. So MSP is basically calculated by Commission of Agriculture Cost and Prices, and on the recommendations of CACP, MSP is announced by the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs, which is chaired by the Prime Minister of India. Achha. If you read the recent article in the Hindu newspaper related to the government announcing MSP on 14 Kharif crops, you must have read certain things. There's the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs announced the MSP, or all India weighted average cost, over that 50% profit is given. So when CACP is calculating MSP, basically CACP is taking certain factors into consideration. Now, what are those factors that are taken into consideration when MSP for a particular crop is to be calculated? First factor that is taken into consideration is the cost of cultivation. See, basic purpose MSP is a form of subsidy. Basic purpose of providing MSP is to protect the farmers or to provide them with some kind of remunerative income in terms of, or in case of a market crash or fall in the market prices. Now, if suppose the cost of cultivation hypothetically is 1000 rupees a quintal and government announces MSP which is also 1000 rupees a quintal. In that case, even if the government procures the farmer's produce at minimum support price, the farmer is not going to get any kind of monetary benefit. So, over and above the cost of cultivation, we need to provide some profit so that the farmers have some kind of income with them. Now, when it comes to providing profit, we know that as per Swaminathan Commission, though it may be debatable related to farmers' organizations and the stand of the government, but government as of now provides minimum of 50% profit over and above the cost of cultivation. But when you look at this term cost of cultivation, then in that case, cost of cultivation will depend on the physical factors. It will depend on the human factors, and we know that the physiography, climatic conditions, human development in different parts of the country is not same. That means physical factors mein the cost would include on the nature of soil or soil fertility. It would depend on rainfall and temperature. It will depend on rainfall and temperature. It will depend on, let's say, the terrain of the area. Human factors mein, it can be dependent on the irrigation facilities available, or let's say the size of the farm holding, or for example the fertilizer availability, or let's say usage of machines. So cost would vary from one part of the country to other part of the country. But when you look at the MSP, when the central government announces the MSP, there is only one MSP for a crop. For example, for let's say paddy grade A, paddy grade common, only one MSP for paddy grade A that will be there for the entire country. Same ways, one MSP for paddy grade common that will be applicable for the entire country. So now the question is, when cost of cultivation is different, then in that case, how do you find out the cost of cultivation for the entire country? You can take the average, but when it comes to the average, the point is average is influenced by the extreme values. There may be one of the areas where cost is very high, so one of the area where cost is less. So when the government announces the MSP on the recommendation of CACP, CACP will take cost of cultivation into consideration, but all India weighted average is taken into account. That means, if suppose hypothetically, we have a case that West Bengal contributes approximately, hypothetically, let's say contributes around 20% to the total paddy production. UP contributes, let's say, 15 or 18% total paddy production. Or let's say Telangana contributes to, let's say, 15% of total paddy production. So when the cost of cultivation will be calculated, then the weights will be assigned to the cost in each of these states. What is the average cost of cultivation in West Bengal, UP, Telangana, Punjab, and so on. And then based on the total production, their contribution central pool, a weighted average will be calculated. So it's not just simple average, but all India weighted average is taken into consideration. Other than the cost, suppose government decides that we are going to provide a minimum of 50% profit over and above the cost of cultivation. But if you look at the profit margins vary a lot. Just for example, wheat carries a profit of more than 100%, but bajra carries a profit of 63%, or let's say paddy carries a profit of 50%. So why does the profit margins vary? Because there are some other factors as well which are taken into consideration while CACP calculates the minimum support price. Jaise, it depends on the demand and supply situation. It depends on the domestic and international price. It depends on stock that we are holding from the previous year. Just suppose the demand of a commodity last year was 100 kg, supply of a commodity was, let's say, 120 kg, then in that case, there was a market which was oversupplied with this commodity. So as a result, 20 kg which is surplus, government would have to procure so that the market price stabilizes. Now, if suppose 100 farmers, they cultivated the crop when the MSP was announced. If this year we have a very high MSP, then cultivation of this crop will be more profitable for the farmers, and instead of 100, let's say 120 farmers are going to cultivate the crops. Government announced a very high profit, so more farmers cultivate the crop. If more farmers cultivate the crop, surplus will be even more. Let's say now 150 kg is produced. That means more of support from government would be required. So government, if already we have a market which is oversupplied, government may not announce a very high MSP. If there's a shortage, then in that case the government may increase the MSP so that the farmers are encouraged to produce more of these crops. Same ways, if suppose we had a case that demand was 100 kg, supply was also 100 kg. And let's say 100 farmers cultivated this crop. If the government this year has to announce the MSP, what is going to happen is government may increase the profit. Because if suppose government keeps the profit margin same, and suppose this year as well, the same 100 farmers cultivate this particular crop. So what is then going to happen is that the 100 kg of produce may be there. But what if the monsoon fails? What if there is a disease that damages the crop? So government would always keep in a buffer stock. If last year 100 was the demand, 100 was the supply, there was no stock with the government. So this year the government may announce an increase in the MSP, so that out or other than more than 100 farmers now, let's say 120 farmers, they cultivate the crop. And when the 120 farmers are going to cultivate the crop, we may have some surplus, government is going to take the surplus, and then this will be used for creating a buffer stock, which will help us during the time of emergency. So stock that we are holding from the previous year is also taken into consideration. Or very important factor that is taken into consideration is the intercrop parity. What does this mean? Intercrop parity means how does the MSP announcement on a particular crop influences the production of other crop which is cultivated in the same area in the same season. For example, I can cultivate maize in Punjab. I can cultivate the same crop paddy in Punjab. Okay? In an area like Punjab, I can cultivate both maize and paddy. If I'm going to cultivate paddy in Punjab, then in that case, what happens is paddy is a water guzzling crop. It will lead to problems of groundwater depletion. It may lead to the problem of stubble burning. So government would want more and more farmers to cultivate maize instead of paddy. So government is going to use this MSP policy as a tool to promote the diversification of crops. What may now happen is, just suppose the cost of maize cultivation is, let's say, 1,000 rupees a quintal. the cost of paddy cultivation is, let's say, also 1000 rupees a quintal. This is the cost of cultivation of paddy and maize. Achha, suppose the government wants paddy cultivating farmers to shift to maize. So if the MSP on maize is announced, let's say it is announced 1800 rupees a quintal, and the MSP on paddy is, let's say, 1500 rupees a quintal. That means paddy mein profit margin is 50% and in maize the profit margin is 80%. So if all other factors are constant, that means we have the same high yielding varieties, we have the same type of procurement for both the crop. If other factors are constant, then in that case more and more farmers will cultivate maize instead of paddy because it gives them the higher returns. So this way government will be successful in implementing its policy of crop diversification. Or if suppose paddy mein MSP is too high and the farmers they start shifting from paddy to maize, X of maize will be cultivated and we may see a shortage of paddy. That also may not go well. So whenever the CACP is calculating MSP, it takes into consideration how will the MSP on one crop affect the cultivation of other crop which is cultivated in the same area or in the same season. Or one of the factors that is taken into consideration is terms of trade between agriculture and non-agriculture commodities. What does this mean? It basically means that if I am providing MSP, the farmer will use this income which he gets through the MSP to purchase non-agriculture commodities. Just for example, I am a farmer, I am selling paddy in the market. Okay? When I am selling paddy in the market, this is the only source of my income. And let's say